Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fifth webinar in our Responsible Hillside Living series. I'm Robert Thompson, Principal Architect here at Aki Workshop, a practice based in Trinidad and Tobago who focus on responsible hillside living. So today we want to talk about the 3 pitfalls to avoid in your building project. And we believe this is relevant for people who are taking on mid-sized to small projects on your own or with a team, just to be able to, spot things and understand the solutions that needs to, or the things you need to think about in these situations. At the end of this, we hope you're able to spot these things and maybe you're able to help someone you know, if not yourself, in these situations before they, get out of hand. All right. So the 3 pitfalls to avoid in your building project. Now, pitfall number 1 is we tend to attach more value to the drawings than we do to the design in the design phase. So what we find a lot when we get inquiries, a lot of prospects will tend to put more focus on the output than the input. Now, why that's a pitfall is that if you don't get clear early on what you want, and when you approach an architect or a designer just to provide some plans because, let's say, you need to secure a bank loan and the bank requires you to have your building permits, so you need some drawings to do that. You're not really focusing on your end product, you're just focusing on getting this information. What happens there is, if you do get all the way to construction, you find that when you start building, you may have lots and lots of changes that you may have to do, and that will then throw your costs up. So to avoid that, it's important when you're thinking about doing a building project, think about what you want that end product to be. Think about what your vision will be and communicate that vision to the people you need to help you to produce it. So for instance, you meet with an architect, you describe your vision. It's up to that architect now to articulate that vision and demonstrate an understanding and communicate it back to you so that you see it and say, yes, this is it. And then he'll document it, and it will then go out to the relevant people so that you could get all your approvals and get your building permits and, build something with, it may still have changes, but may limited changes, right? That is important. You spend as much time in your design phase to get it right first before you start building, because if you end up on site with a set of information or a set of information that's not what you want, then you're going to be designing with a building contractor on site charging for day rates, which is a nightmare. Okay, so try to avoid this pitfall as much as possible. Sometimes we're just in a rush and we assume that once we say we need some drawings, the design is automatically attached, but the design is what you want. The drawing is the byproduct of having a clear design and clear communication between your design team and yourself, right? Pitfall number 2 is, well, sorry, this was an analogy I had as well, where I was looking at a tailor-made suit, because most buildings are custom made. Once you have a designer doing a residence for you, that's a custom made building. So it's not just a set of drawings. So you'd liken that to going to a tailor and having a custom suit made. You're not just going to call him up and say, I need a suit. You're going to go there, he's going to measure you up, you're going to have a conversation about it. You're going to describe how you want to feel, and he's going to come back and create something that he's going to test on you, and then you're going to adjust it as you go along, right? So that's kind of an analogy to help you understand why it's important to put more value on the design over just the byproduct of the documents that you get at the end. Pitfall number 2. The tender stage. Now, the tender stage is when you send out all the information to contractors to get a price back, so you could decide on which contractor to use. And in this stage, what we find is that people tend to either accept the lowest price or accept the lowest price without making sure that the contractor is really clear on the scope. Now, the danger of this is that some contractors may, not all, but some may just, take a glance, price it just to get the job. But then when construction starts, things got missed. And, they're just going to say, we didn't price for those things, right? That's happened to me. Just out of school, I was helping a friend with a project. We got the contractor to look at the drawings and price it. He gave us an amazing price. And we were like, yeah, amazing, let's just go. And when we started, it was loads of things he didn't think about, he didn't price for. All he gave us was a labor cost. So now the project ended up costing double what we thought it would have cost. So to avoid situations like that, you need to, one, give a contractor enough time to price. And 2, you need to encourage them to, review the drawings and send questions, visit the site, making sure that you're all clear on the scope, and sign an agreement to say, listen, I've reviewed and priced this document. This is the price I've agreed to. This is the time I've agreed to. And you sign an agreement, right? A lot of people don't have contracts between themselves and contractors when doing jobs. They just, they have a handshake, but it's difficult to enforce a handshake when things go wrong. So I think, it's as simple as a simple document saying, Mr. X agrees to build such and such a place at such and such a cost in such and such a time. And Mr. Y agrees to pay him, promptly at such and such a time. And just sign that, and you have a somewhat of an agreement, So in the tender stage, you should really make sure that your contractor understands your scope, what he needs to build, how long he needs to build, he'll decide how long he wants, he'll take to build it, or you agree on that in the tender stage. And you also need to, in the tender stage, there's a set of documents that you need to have, right? So these are the documents that make up a tender, right? Now your drawings, your scope, your pricing schedule, and a terms of contract, right? Now, most small building projects with small contractors mainly only have the drawings, right? You usually, the majority of the times, don't have a pricing schedule or terms of contract. A pricing schedule would usually be prepared by a quantity surveyor, right? And the quantity surveyor would also prepare terms of contract as well. And this is important because these three things are read together. And once you sign that terms of contract, this document forms your agreement, right? Now, you can still do a project without this, but you stand a higher chance of things going wrong with no way of, if things go wrong without these things, then the onus is on you, the client, most of the time, if it's not a clear error by the contractor, to pay to remedy these things. And this will then up your costs. And that's I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have heard stories of things like that, right? So pitfall number 3, which is piggybacking on what we just spoke about, in the construction stage, we usually have no systems of accountability on small projects. And this is, very bad. It's bad with, your project could end up being a white elephant, just being unfinished. Spend tons of money, spend loads of time, and then you end up with nothing at the end. So having systems of accountability for all the collaborators and the parties involved is very important. So different systems we could look at is one, a contract. And as I mentioned before, a contract is made up of the drawings, the scope, the pricing schedule, and your terms. And that will basically govern everything. And short of that, you could probably agree to retain some of the payments to the contractor. So with a payment retention where you would keep something back as insurance in case he doesn't fulfill his side of the bargain, you could then use that money to try to complete the job, right? There are other things like, bonds that you could use, but with bonds, that's usually left for bigger projects where bigger contractors can afford to put up bonds and so on. And then you could also try to discuss guarantees with a contractor. So a contractor should be able to guarantee certain parts of his work. You guarantee that the shingles won't fall off. You guarantee that the windows won't leak. If the windows leak, then you're responsible to come and fix it at no cost. So these are things that we should try our best to make sure that we could agree with somebody who's about to do a building job for us before we go ahead, because without these things could save us thousands in a project and save us lots of time as well. Right now, that takes us to kind of like the end of the sort of presentation section, but I'd love to hear any questions you guys may have regarding those 3 pitfalls. Have you ever experienced it? Do you know anybody who's going through that at the moment? Any questions you'd have, let's hear it. Thanks very much. Yeah. Any questions coming in?
Hi, Robert. Are you hearing me?
Hi, Ashton. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Not pretty much. clear on the topic that the presentation. So there weren't really much questions, just comment on the design phase. So this would be not that much knowledgeable on the architecture, and if the architect is also able to design, and in the design taking consideration with nature and with airflow and the terrain. Well, I know you do hillsides. I understand you understand the terrain, but design it in such a way where you maximize the beauty of the surroundings, and then at the same time make it workable. So as the architect is able to design it to not draw the buildings, obviously, but to design it to encapsulate all of these things.
Yes, of course. Once we come on, once the architect comes on site and does the site analysis, a site analysis is looking at, how to place your build, what's the optimal way to place your building on a site, where is the prevailing winds coming from, how to minimize solar gain, especially in Caribbean, shading, all these elements are the first thing we have to analyze before deciding, before even deciding where you put a bedroom. You need to understand, how the sun incidents on your building, right? So these are things that we have to study and then implement in our design, and then communicate through our drawings to the builder and to yourself. Yeah, that's definitely a part of our, what we do,
All right, okay, thank you, I understand. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, see another question coming in here. Explain more about a QS. Okay, so a QS is a quantity surveyor, and a quantity surveyor is a very important part of the design team. He basically determines the costs of the building, make sure that we stay on budget. He creates what we call the pricing schedule, which is a breakdown of every element in the building, also known as a BOQ, bills of quantities. Breaks down every element of the building, measures it up, puts a rate to it and a cost, and establishes the final budget for the project. And with that budget, when you send your tenders out to different contractors and you get prices back, you use that budget price to compare with the contractor's price to find the best match. And then in the construction phase, the QS also helps with the valuations of payments. So they're a very important part of the building team, quantity surveyors. Any other questions? Feel free to ask us anything.
Just a question again.
Sure.
During so we talk about getting contractors and all of that, and setting out tenders and all of that. If so, well, like a project manager or maybe the quantity surveyor, if you have builders that you may want to use, but may not be as technical savvy as, they're small contractors. They're not, technical savvy and be able to do all the big blueprint designs and drawings and the interpretation. Is there someone on your team that could be that person to advise? So maybe a project manager or a quantity surveyor or something like that to advise on the more technical aspects and maybe oversee that, or ideally you just want to get you want to get a contractor who knows exactly what he or she doing.
Well, ideally you want to get the contractor who knows what they're doing, but in the absence of that, you can work with a smaller builder. So what that means is more input from us and my team to be kind of, fielding questions more often than you would with a bigger contractor, right? But I mean, we've worked with smaller contractors where, we help them to negotiate the information, and it's also in that breath of empowering, because if you get small contractors becoming really good, then you start to see an improvement in the built environment,
Agreed.
further afield.
Totally understand. Totally agree.
So I am always advocating for helping smaller contractors with, getting better at using information. Like, for instance, there's one contractor that I work with now. He's terrible at pricing, but he's really, really good. Right? He's really good at really challenging terrains, but he's bad at pricing. So what I've done is I've linked him up with a quantity surveyor who will then take care of that section of the works.
Understood. Yeah.
And so he could focus on building. So with, let's say, a contractor who can't read plans, it's not that difficult to teach somebody to read some plans, over a period of time, but it just means that clients need to compensate for that time. So
Understood.
then, how are you going to justify having to pay somebody to teach somebody when you could, it all works back out, because if you get a bigger contractor, the cost you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. It's all a question of how you would want it to do it. You have to pay either in front or behind, but there is some payment that will have to be made.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody.
But I also agree with the empowering of the person too. So yeah.
Yeah, because we're currently looking at doing some work in the mature area, and it's about trying to get the community to build and then kind of learn from that, and because people self-build in those areas mainly.
No, but Robert, that is important, because if you get the people in the community, they feel that the project is part, and you just not come in and want to dominate or
so you get them in the community.
That's important. Yeah,
get them in the community to do it, to work on it. It becomes a part of them. They could take that knowledge and implement it in something for themselves, and that knowledge just keeps growing, and then you have a building force up there that's really good, and you create nice buildings on the north. It's just, I mean, I have a spot in my heart for doing that, and it's what I'm working towards.
Understand. Agreed and understand.
Right. Anybody else? Any other questions? Right, so contractors I've worked with. Sure, I could, if you send us your email address, we could send you out a list of contractors. What area are you in? If you want to come off mute and just, tell us about what you're looking to do.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good night. How do you pronounce your name? Karif?
Karif.
Right.
Yes.
Hi.
So I'm based. Good night. Hi. I'm based in the West. So I'm looking to do some renovation on a property in PT Valley.
Okay.
So I'm still in the early stages. So I haven't decided on like what is my approach and anything like that.
Okay.
So I guess that's why I asked about the contractors in terms of options.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what extent of renovation are you looking to do? Let's say,
Well, it's a pretty dated house. So I'd have to change like the roof, and I might redesign the kitchen, the bathroom, stuff like that. Change the flooring. So a good bit of work would have to be done.
right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is this on flatland or on the hillside?
Yes, it's flatland. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you
Yeah.
send us your email address, we could send you a list of people you could contact and
Right.
just
Okay.
we could go from there. All right.
Okay. That's great. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Sorry about silence before. Still at work.
That's all right.
I recently purchased a plot of land last week actually. Last week or the week before.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but it's flat. Thank you. Yeah, people keep saying that. I'm not feeling that way just yet. Probably when I'm in a house on the plot. But yeah, but it's completely flat. It's in Shogunas. I don't know if you know the Brookhaven development in that area there. It's fairly new. So I don't know if it's something that you all would be familiar with or even interested in taking on, but I do like your style, which is why I would have signed up for this. But I really am incredibly new to anything building. So
Okay. Well,
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
what,
So all
what's
I
your,
have is land.
what's your burning question?
How do I move past just having the land? How do I, what's the next step?
Okay, so your next step, your next step is building because you want to build a house. So
Yes.
your next step would either be engaging an architect who would then work with you to formulate a kind of vision for what what do you want to do, So if you'd like, we could send you a link for a 30-minute virtual consultation.
Yes, I would appreciate that because I have a pretty good idea of what I want.
Brilliant. All right. And we could talk about what you want to do, and we see how we could help you or point you in the right direction.
Okay. That sounds
Excellent.
easy enough.
All right, Denzel, no problem. So we'll send you, if you send me your email in the chat, we'll send you
Sure.
a link to book a meeting with us.
Will do.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, let's see our time. Any other questions? I mean, we said we discussed 3 pitfalls, but I mean, there are many pitfalls, but what I noticed is that these are the common ones for projects that are usually taken on by smaller contractors. And I mean, they're very simple fixes, to these problems, right? Any other questions? We'll run it until 6:30. If there's no other questions, you could always send us, if anything comes up, you could always send us a message and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have coming out of this webinar. Anything else? Let's see. See, we are almost at. All right. No problem, Yasmin. We'll look forward to chatting with you. You're welcome, Ashton. We'll talk soon, yeah? And is there a difference in drawings used to get approvals and drawings to construction? Yes, there is. So for planning, you don't necessarily need a full set of construction drawings. And even for regional corporation, you need a little bit more, but it's not necessarily. So you could, with approval drawings, could build you a shell. That's the bottom line of approval drawings. If you only get that, you could build a shell. You don't necessarily need to describe what size tiles you're going to use. You don't necessarily need to describe your doors and windows and ironmongery and all the kind of finance.
What's in it?
Hello? Oh, yeah, you don't
But it
need.
was not being said. You can go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. So with approval drawings, you don't need to define the finer details of things, which you really need if you're gonna, have a well-rounded building project. But if you just your approval drawings, you could build your shell. You could build from it, but it's not necessarily all the information you need. All right. So I mean, you could come off mute and we could discuss it further if you'd like. If you have another question or you want to clarify some more what you mean, but with approval drawings, you can build to a point. You could build your shell. Does that work for you? I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, Mr. Ambrose. Cool, no problem. All right. Well, it's past. I'd like to thank you all for coming. And this webinar will be available on our YouTube page in a few days. And if you know of anybody that would benefit from this information, please feel free to send them a link to our YouTube page. You get an email with that information once the webinar is posted. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you so much for joining us.